The whole time we were telling this story, like while you were, I don't know if you could hear it, it started pouring and thundering and it
That's
got
amazing.
super dark. And I'm just like, I am sitting here and I have the only light in the house right now on me, and it's pitch black everywhere else. And I'm just like,
That's so funny.
welcome back. We're your host, Savannah.
And Kaylin.
I'm ready. I'm excited.
So today we're going to be talking about the Appalachian Mountains.
Ooh.
And not necessarily the folklore of it, but the creepy, mysterious things that wander the forest.
Okay.
So, one thing I have to note is it is commonly mispronounced as Appalachian. And it's actually Appalachian, which I didn't know until recently.
I called it Appalachian.
Yeah, me too.
Times.
That's all that I've ever heard.
Appalachian. Like that.
So, they have what's called the no you don't rules. If you hear something, no you don't. If you see something, no you don't.
Oh my god.
And if something calls your name from the forest, no it didn't.
Yes, I did.
And then they advise to leave quickly, but don't run, because running just activates their predator-prey instincts.
Who's they?
We're about to find out.
Okay.
So, people also say to close your curtains before sundown so nothing can see you.
Oh my god.
And to never whistle when you're in the woods or look into the tree lines.
That's a lot to remember.
Well, people said they have heard people calling their name while they're in the forest hiking. And most of the time, it's people they know.
Oh, Lord.
So they advise you that if you hear that, it is not who you think it is. Do not acknowledge it and leave.
Oh my god.
But there's also reportedly been deer that send chills down your spine. People say either you just get a weird feeling about them, or supposedly there have been deer spotted with multiple, like more than two eyes, or they will stand on their two back legs and grow to like this 10 feet tall creature.
Oh my god.
And also, they've reportedly seen skinwalkers, which I don't know if you know what a skinwalker is, but basically, like, it might look like a deer, but then it's really not this crazy monster, or like it'll look like a man, but then it's not.
Ew.
So there's theories of an old Appalachian tribe called the Moon-Eyed people. They are described as being short and pale with milky skin and large, sun-sensitive eyes.
So me.
They emerged from their underground homes at night to hunt and forage. It was actually the Cherokee that discovered old stone weapons and tools believed to be from this tribe, as well as an interesting looking sculpture, which I'm going to show you right now.
Okay.
So this right here is the sculpture that they found that's supposed to represent the moon people.
Okay.
They don't know, like, I don't really know where it originates from, but the Cherokee found it. Okay. And then if you look here, this is supposedly where their underground houses were. There wasn't any normal looking doors. They wanted to blend in with the environment for safety reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought that was kind of cool. One of the like folklore of the
Did
Appalachian.
They have any like openings or ways to get inside? Like, or did they just move?
Yeah, they're blocked off. They're blocked off now by like all the like rubble and stuff.
Oh my
but
god,
that's what's believed. So
that's amazing. Okay.
Yeah, definitely interesting, you know?
Yeah.
So they were said to be unable to see during different phases of the moon, and that during one of these phases, the Creek people basically annihilated the tribe. That's how they believe they became extinct or whatever.
Yeah.
So I have a couple Reddit stories I wanted to share with you.
Ooh, my
And it
favorite.
is, yes, it is people's personal experiences that they experience while hiking the Appalachian Trail.
Okay.
So,
Right.
one's a little shorter and one's kind of long, so bear with me,
All
but
right.
it's good.
Okay.
Okay. So I can't see your face while I'm reading this, by the way.
But I'm
All
sure
right.
I'll make plenty of
So
faces.
the first one is, yeah. So this one is my AT Appalachian Trail ghost story. Let me lay out the background.
Hmm.
I'm in the south hiking the Appalachian Trail. I'm
Hmm.
unsure of the exact location. It was between Pearsburg, VA, and Johnson City, Tennessee. I tried to do some research and I couldn't find much information other than the Bell Witch, and that is the opposite side of Tennessee. This has been tearing me apart for the last 4 years. So, I'm hiking along with my through hiker buddy. It's a clear day and no sign of rain. Nothing but blue skies. We're pretty distant from any town or even road for that matter. The forest is clear of underbrush and nothing but bare trees. We could easily see beyond 300 yards. About 150 to 200 yards away, up on the hill, we both saw a brunette woman gazing off in the distance, not looking towards us. She was wearing a white gown, possibly a simple wedding dress.
Hmm.
This is extremely odd for this area. So my pal and myself called out loudly to her, "Hey, ma'am, are you lost?" The woman keeps her torso and shoulders still and jerks her head towards us.
Oh my god.
The speed and angle of her head turn should have broken her neck. She let out a sharp, ear piercing scream, almost like a banshee
Cool.
from one of those old stories, and we
Yeah.
ran as fast as we could with our packs. As we're running away, the wind picks up heavily, nearly hurricane levels. Branches are snapping and even heard a tree fall in the distance. The rain started pouring, sideways rain, strong winds. I know the weather can change like a dime in the mountains, but this just felt different. Like we were cold from 80 plus degrees to nearly 60 or less with a wind chill that was constant. Other hikers were caught in the rain as well. They were as confused as we were with the unexplained change in weather. We couldn't tell them what we saw, obviously. We couldn't even explain it to each other. We both knew we had saw her. We continued on the trail and never mentioned it.
It's the weather change for me.
Yeah, like what?
And the wedding dress, like, that's just weird anyways. You don't see that often.
No.
Oh
No.
my god. And they seem like genuinely creeped out by it. Like
Right. So this one is called the Appalachian Horror. So, I'm gonna try my best. I grew up in southern Appalachia in western North Carolina, 30 minutes outside of the town of Asheville. The hills and hollers of the Appalachian Mountains are some of the oldest mountains in the world, with some of the rock formations dating back over 1 billion years. That quite literally means they were here before there were terrestrial animals.
wow.
As with most things that have been on the earth a long time, there are inexplicable anomalies, both benevolent and malevolent. For example, the brown mountain lights. Never in my life have I felt threatened or uneasy when witnessing them from Wiseman's view. They're neither good nor evil, they just are. On the benevolent side, sometimes when you walk through an abandoned old church, up near mom and dad's property line, you can feel good, warm, and happy energy. It's like that first warm day of summer when the sunshine is too hot but not too cold. Well, this story is not about one such anomaly. It's about something that was definitely malevolent.
Ugh.
About a decade ago, I was in night school up at AB Tech going to school for automotive mechanics. I would go into class about 2 p.m. after I got off my part-time job, and I would end up getting home around 10:30 p.m. depending on the traffic. Every night I drove the same road in my old 1973 double W200 Dodge pickup. Some nights it would get rather boring and I would take a different route, jump off I-40 and drive the back roads. On this particular evening, I had decided to just stay on I-40 because I just wanted to go home and go to bed. It was Thursday and there was no class on Friday, and I wanted to get in bed early so I could go out into the woods and go hiking early tomorrow morning. As I jump off I-40 onto the exit where my parents lived, the night seemed to get darker and none of the animals that I could hear through my rolled down windows made any more noise. The cab of my truck became smaller and smaller and my breathing quickened. I have never faced any kind of anxiety in my life, but at that moment, something felt off and there was no way I could put my finger on what it
Oh
was.
God.
I came to a stop on the exit ramp, turned to go down the road, and I happened to notice that the gas station off the exit where mom and dad lived had no lights on. They were a 24-hour truck stop and always had lights on, but I didn't think about it again after noticing. I just chalked it up to power being out, but I could not shake the feeling that something was definitely wrong. I slowly shifted through all of my old truck's gears, not wanting to make any more noise than an old pickup already did. I leaned over my steering wheel to look up at the moon through the windshield, and there were barely any stars visible, which was way out of the ordinary.
Hmm.
If you've ever been to Appalachia, primarily the sparsely populated areas where I'm from, you can see the Milky Way on clear nights. An absence of stars back home is only due to cloud cover or whatever the hell went on this particular night. As I rounded a particularly sharp left-hand curve and chugged through a straight stretch before the next right-hander I took at the ancient, decaying barn I always gazed at while riding the stretch of road and thought about how long that thing had been here and how many advancements in civilizations it had seen. Old Betsy was a good truck, but she didn't stop well. Thump, thump. I heard the fence post I had left in my truck bounce up out of my bed and then back into it as I slid to a stop. The first thought was, oh God, now I have to go tell these neighbors that I ran over their dog. That shit
Oh.
doesn't go real far with people around here, and it can really kind of set them off depending on the dog and the person. As I sat there breathing in the smell of burning rubber, something else found its way into my nose. The stench of rotting flesh. It's
Yeah.
not a smell you'll ever forget once you smell it one time. I didn't pay much attention to it at the time. I just chalked it up to some rotting roadkill nearby. Finally, I thought to myself, let me go check and see who this dog belongs to. I pushed my clutch in, shifted to reverse, and as I looked in my rearview mirror, illuminated by the haunting glow of my reverse tail lamps, was the same dog, only it wasn't on four legs anymore. It had stood up like a man.
No.
A man well over 10 feet tall. Only then did it dawn on me that the front of my truck was every bit of 5 feet tall, and this dog was every bit of 5 feet tall at the shoulder on all fours.
Oh my God.
As it turned its head to look in the direction of my truck, I caught only a glimpse of this creature. It was not a dog, it was not a man, it was something in between, and at the same time entirely separate altogether. Its skin hung loose off its emaciated and thin frame, like a raccoon. Bits of matted fur and dirt and mud clung to its legs like a disease. The right arm seemed a little bit longer than the left, and they both hung abnormally low in relation to either animal this creature seemed to be. As it regained its senses, it turned and looked into the mirror like it knew exactly where I was sitting. The face of that of a man's, but the very edges of its face seemed to not be totally defined. They seemed to move and change like something you would see at a cellular level in a scientific documentary. There were no eyes, but only sockets where the eyes should have been. No hair, and the skin that was dripping off its face was a cold, lifeless gray color. The nose was short and shoved into its face like a bulldog, but the teeth still haunt me. It was definitely carnivorous, true to form of the rest of its unnatural look. Many of the teeth didn't seem to be arranged in a natural way in its mouth. They seemed to fill and spill forth from the unidentifiable face, almost like they knew the horror they occupied and they were searching for a way out. It stared through my life, into my eyes, and past my soul. It seemed like an eternity, but it could not have been more than 5 seconds that I sat there, paralyzed. A light came on at the house next to the road, causing the creature to snap its gaze in the direction and tear off into the woods on its back 2 legs like a man. I jammed my old truck in first gear and roasted tires all the way through first, snatched second gear, and drove as fast as I could home. When I got to the house, both of my parents were asleep. I went downstairs in my bedroom and loaded every firearm I possessed and locked all of the doors. I couldn't wake them up. Who the fuck would believe that? And at 10:30 on a Thursday night, the basement was eerily quiet that night. Even their dogs that got up to raise hell at outside animals at all hours of the night were dead silent.
Ugh.
The old post and beam house didn't even creak or pop that night, as was usual. At about 3 a.m., I started to finally get drowsy, and as I went to lay my head down to get some sleep so I could still attempt to go hiking the next morning, I smelled the stench of death again.
Ugh.
It was faint at first, but it was definitely there. I thought to myself, you're just going crazy. None of that shit was real. But as I dwelled on it, it became more and more noticeable until it filled the entire basement.
Oh my god.
My dad has a home office in the basement with 2 large glass doors that face the National Forest. I finally worked up the courage to walk out of my bedroom and into the basement living room. With my little tactical 12-gauge loaded tack light on, I covered the flashlight with my hand so as not to make my presence known until need be. And as I turned right out of the living room into my father's office, I shined the light through the glass door, and at the edge of the woods, there stood the creature.
Ugh.
It was motionless. It stared right into the light, unafraid, with those soulless sockets. I quickly covered my tactical light, ran into the living room, flipped on the outdoor floodlights, and to my surprise, it was no longer standing at the edge of the woods, but between the house and the edge of the woods, still motionless. I swung the door open and fired every round I had in its direction. I must have scored a couple hits because it screeched an unearthly scream, like that of a woman being slaughtered as I took off into the woods.
Jesus.
The dogs went crazy. Mom and Dad woke up asking me what the hell I was doing. I told them that a bear had gotten into the trash and I was scaring it away. They didn't believe me, but I knew they wouldn't believe the truth either. I didn't sleep that night or any time until the following Sunday. Everything seems to return to normal, and I didn't think about the creature again until I met my wife about 6 years later. Her mother's house sits at the mouth of the holler, no more than 4 or 5 miles up the road from my mother and father's. Up on the side of the holler, there are kennels for her brother's hunting dogs, no longer in use and haven't been in years, but the fence is still there and the concrete pad is still there. It's a thing of great use when you need to quarantine an animal. Her Great Pyrenees had gotten into a tussle with a raccoon, which of course he destroyed, but his rabies vaccination had lapsed, so we had to keep him quarantined for a time. It didn't bother him, he kind of liked solitude. This particular night that we were coming home from a movie date in a neighboring town was the last night of quarantine for him. So we walked up the trail using our phone flashlights to get to the kennel where he sat, patiently waiting, tail wagging, happy to see us. We put him on a leash and started walking back to the house with him. As we were walking back through the darkness, I started to feel the same feeling I had the night I hid the creature in my truck. I didn't say anything so as not to alarm my wife, but then the smell came wafting in on the breeze. She jokingly asked me, "My God, what did you eat? You stink." I half-assed laughed, not being able to fully appreciate the joke for the horrors that raged in my mind. She immediately caught on and asked me what's wrong, to which I could only reply, "I'll tell you later." She grew up in the woods and around hunting and things of that nature her whole life, so she knew what I meant. She knew we were being watched by something. When we could see the lights of the house from the trail to the kennel, we heard it. There came barking from the kennel that sounded just like the Great Pyrenees we had on the leash next to us. It was a perfect imitation. The Pyrenees, being a guardian dog, immediately sensed that something was wrong, and so he turned to face the danger, belting out deep barks and growls in that direction. I don't know if you ever had to drag a 150-pound dog, but it sucks and it's no easy task. I'm 6 foot tall and 240 pounds, and it was all I could do to get him back in the house. The barking never ceased the entire time we were running towards the house. In fact, it seemed to grow closer and closer until it seemed it was coming from inside my own head. Her mother heard the commotion and flipped the floodlights on as we made it into the fence of the yard, and I caught a glimpse of something coming to a dead stop at the end of where the light reached, wheeling around and tearing off back into the darkness. My wife looks at me and goes, "You want to tell me what the fuck that was?" To which I replied, "Yes, let's go inside." I told her the story and she listened intently, hanging on every word. Her family came from a long line of granny witches and other supernatural healers of the Appalachians, So her older sister came over the next morning with some herbs and chants to bless the property and to ward off evil. I suggested we go up to the dog kennels and do them as well. When we got to the kennels, they were completely destroyed. The very concrete foundation was cracked and the chain link fence was torn off its post.
Oh my god.
The dog houses were destroyed and the place reeked of the stench that followed the creature. My wife's older sister just went on about her business like normal, blessed the place, burnt some herbs, and led us back to the property. When we got to the house, she wheeled about on us suddenly and instructed us very firmly to never go in the woods after dark, not until this thing left me alone. To make a long story short, my wife joined the military and she ended up getting stationed in Delaware. Well, as someone who's lived around fairly large mountains and endless wilderness their entire life, Delaware is pretty terrible. At least that was my thought when we first moved to the middle of a 50,000 plus population city. Fortunately, though, it didn't take us long to find a house in a sleepy little community further south. We purchased the house and moved in with we purchased the house and moved in. We were both very grateful and glad to be out of the city in a rural setting again. The land in Delaware seems lifeless in comparison to the Appalachia. The sparsely populated woods don't possess any energy that goes one way or the other. The ground doesn't seem to be alive like it is in Appalachia. Having no thought about the creature in a long time, I resumed my staying outside after dark and playing with our dogs in a rather large yard that borders a small patch of woods. Well, last night, I went outside to play with the dogs, and as dark set in, I built a decent sized fire in my pit and consumed some good old fashioned Appalachian mountain cough syrup from a mason jar. And just as the fire was dying down, my American bulldog tore off towards the woods. He has a habit of running off to go on adventures, so my immediate instinct was to chase him down in the yard and tackle him so he could not get away. As I tackled his 110-pound ass to the ground and threw him to a fireman's carry over my shoulders, I heard him begin to bark. Only the bark was not coming from him. The only sound coming from him was a deep, rumbling growl, a noise I've never heard him make. It was a threatening noise. Something was definitely wrong, and as I ran with him on my shoulders back to the house, the stench of death again began to fill the air. The two other dogs must have caught wind of what was happening and met me back at the door, which I threw open, slammed shut, locked, and again loaded my firearms. How the hell could this thing have followed us 650 miles up here? As I flipped my floodlights on, at the backside of my house, several of the bushes and small trees at the forest edge were still shaking, like something had just run through them. My dogs went crazy all night, barking and howling and attempting to get out the windows. I didn't sleep a bit, and I don't think I will for a while. I know for sure I won't be in the woods after dark ever again in my life. Not until this thing is finally gone. And that's it.
Oh my god. Now I'm scared of going to the woods ever again. Ever. And on top of that, the whole time we were telling this story, like while you were, I don't know if you could hear it, it started pouring and thundering and it
That's
got
amazing.
super dark. And I'm just like, I am sitting here and I have the only light in the house right now on me and it's pitch black everywhere else. And I'm just like,
That's so funny. I can't wait to watch back the recording because I couldn't see your face the whole time.
oh, I know I made some good ones.
But yeah, creepy as fuck.
That is so creepy. I'm gonna have nightmares tonight.
So with that being said, I have a little video to show.
Oh no, are you serious?
It's super short, and a lot of people claim that it's fake.
Okay.
But when I seen the video, it was literally like 10 minutes after I read that Reddit story.
Ugh.
And pretty sure it's exactly what that man described.
Okay.
So tell me what you think. I'm sure you have an image in your head based on what I read. All right, here we go.
Okay.
Let me turn the volume down on it a little bit. Isn't that creepy?
I don't like that at all. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up at that. So once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to Send us any feedback on Spotify. Subscribe to our YouTube, follow our social media, and we'll also be linking any videos that we showed in the description.